So we conclude this night in the main segment with college football. Haven't done that in a little bit, but we had some news. I think it came out today that the college football playoff, it will not expand until at least the current contract expires, which expires at the end of the 2025 season. I think you needed all the FBS commissioners and the Notre Dame AD to be in unison on this one to vote for expansion, and they were not in unison and they could not get there. So we will have a 4-team playoff until 2025, and then I suppose they will revisit this and continue moving. Of course, I think we are going to get expansion at some point. But the one thing, Drake, I'll set you up this way. The one thing that kind of caught me by surprise was this seemed to be based on all these negotiations seem to be based off the 12-team model that we kind of had laid out last June, I believe. So they were trying to go from 4 to 12. There didn't really ever seem to be an 8-team playoff sprinkled in. I'll let you take it from there.
I think that's for two reasons. Reason number one, I think so. We always talk about with the birth of the college football playoffs, it minimized the other bowl games outside the New Year's Six. So I think now that we done had 8 years of the 4-team playoff with the college football playoffs, I think now it's enough data out there to say if we don't include all of the New Year's Six bowls, we might render the rest of those bowls useless too. So we want to keep the value of the New Year's Six bowls. We go to 12. We make all 6 bowl games a playoff game, and then you from there you would make the next rounds probably off-site games, which would tell me that a lot of the lower bowl games will get faded out unless you're going to try to use those games as the first round and then backtrack for the next round to use the New Year's Six bowls or however. But I do think the 12-team thing is wrapped around the New Year's Six bowls because like I told you earlier, we done had the New Year's Six bowls back during the BCS era and before then. Those bowls have been around for a while. And I just don't think college football as a whole want to dilute, let's say, the Rose Bowl or the Sugar Bowl, the Orange Bowl. You know what I'm saying? Even the Peach Bowl, with that being pretty much the newcomer of the group. They want to keep the popularity of those bowl games. They don't want to turn the Rose Bowl into the Jimmy Kimmel Live Bowl. You know what I'm saying? Where people just don't really care. You know, the Idaho Potato Bowl. They want to keep the Rose Bowl as an elevated, bowl that people want to see, people want to watch, people want to get a ticket to, and I think that's the way to do it. Now, here's the thing. For all of my people that say it's about we need to expand this, we sick of this bull rip, this is bull rip, we think, this should be expanded, this is so unfair to most of the country. Man, listen. College football playoff been around 8 years. Give me the year where we had eight contenders. I'm talking about, you look at all the data points that they scream every show, strength of schedule, who have you played, who you got left on your schedule, what was your out of conference schedule, the eye test, whatever metric you want to use. Give me the year where right before they picked the 4 teams, we had 8 teams that was playoff ready.
But drink the last several years, it seems like the 4th team that gets thrown in doesn't even measure up. Like there was a couple years where it was Oklahoma and they get just boat raced by the 1 seed. And I mean, so yeah, when you talk about the actual just competitive spirit of the game and like what's best for the sport from a viewer standpoint, expansion, because we've seen like you'd have to go way back to see like competitive semifinals. The semifinals lately have not been competitive generally. So it has to be something about, like, I think there's probably a real financial incentive to expand. There's probably other reasons as well, but when you talk about actually the health of the sport and the great thing about college football, which we say is a sense of urgency, this isn't sense of urgency.
I think the very first year of the playoffs was the only year that come to my mind where I say, oh, all the games was competitive. I mean, Ohio State did pull away from Oregon a little bit towards the end of the national championship, but we seen what how Ohio State and Alabama ended. Then we see how Florida State versus Oregon ended. That was probably the most competitive playoff going into the national championship. I think after that, that's when it became more of a popularity contest, I guess you'd say, and that's where the mismatch started. That's where like everybody was, oh yeah, we got to put it in the Big 12, we got to put it in the SEC, we got to put it in the AAC, you know, whatever the case might be. So with that said, I am glad that the management committee decided no, we just can't agree on this and we shouldn't do it, because like it's all about money. Sometimes the product that you got, you make enough money off of it. I know it's a business. You can never make enough money, but it does become a time where you try to do too much and then you kind of killing your own product, you know. And another argument I heard about expansion is, well, if you expand, you minimize players opting out. Let's be clear here. Players was opting out before the playoffs became a thing. It just, they wasn't opting out to the level that they're opting out now. And it was not highly profiled like it is now. Like as soon as the championship weekend is done, we sitting over here waiting to see who's gonna opt out now. If your team ain't in the playoffs, I'm pretty sure the best players on your team, they ain't playing if they in a regular, you know, New Year's Six bowl. Only if you're in a playoff game can you kind of guarantee that your players will play.
I think. What do you think about that? Like, because to me, if you go to 12-team expansion, like if you're a high profile prospect on a 10, 11, 12 seed, I think you still opt out, because now you have what? If you make it to the championship game, you're going to play another 4 games, and the likelihood of, I don't think it's worth. You're not. I mean, whatever 12 seed, if it's some FBS school, you're not beating Alabama or Georgia. Like, it's just not happening. So I think you're still going to see the opt outs, as you say.
Yeah, I think you get one game. I think you get one game out of all of them. And the reason I say that is because, yeah, you might not beat those teams, but like a Desmond Ridder, for example, Alabama pretty much balled him up. However, his draft stock actually rose because of the fact that he played that game against Alabama. Because you got to understand, with the playoffs, right, that's more eyes coming to the set. So this might be your best opportunity to audition for the NFL. So if you sit out of a playoff game, now I ain't talking about the Michigan Tire Bowl. Yeah, no, whatever. I don't think the NFL is going to hold that against you. But if you're in what we consider a playoff game and you just don't play, you know what I'm saying? Oh, I'm sitting out getting ready for the NFL. I think that can look bad, because if you're playing at Alabama, you're playing at Georgia, you're playing at Michigan, you're playing at Notre Dame, you're playing at USC, like that's gonna have a lot of eyes on them. So what the hell you mean you ain't gonna play? Because?
From that perspective, it definitely makes sense for like a group of 5 team. I still think like for, you know, if it's a Ole Miss at like an 11 or 12 seed, like you I think it's still possible where you could have guys, you know, sit out in that case, because those guys, there's gonna be enough tape on them from high quality competition. But to the other point, like if you win, you know, let's just say if we get at least one game. Well, okay, I play that one game. If you somehow win, then like you can't stop playing in that case, I don't think. So I'm just saying there is some still like injury risk, which is the whole point of guys opting out of these bowl games.
True, but it's always injury risk. And that's, look, at the end of the day, that's the coach job, right? The coach job is to motivate their players and get the most out of their players. But like if you got a player that's just like, he just ain't gonna play because he's gonna get hurt. I mean, you gotta let them know you can get hurt at the combine. Then what? Like I don't. You can get hurt at any time. You know what I'm saying? And it's kind of like your legacy is on the line. But here's my thing. This is why the 12-team playoff is ridiculous, because you're gonna have a bunch of teams where you just like, wait, what? They lost 4 games. It just feels like they're trying to create this. To your point, they're trying to create this March Madness vibe that's just not gonna work in the game of football. One game is too rough on these young men's body to be. Okay, we won this week. Now let's go to next week. Let's go to the 14 playoff is nice because all it is your bowl game with a +1.
Right.
That's all it is.
Yeah, you get to this point and what you're adding 3 or 4 maybe. So then you're like, plus the regular season, plus a conference title game, likely you're going to be looking at maybe 16 games, which now you're in the NFL.
That's the thing. And that's another thing. What do you do about the regular season? Do you shorten that? Because what we do know is the academic schedule doesn't change for athletes. They just find a way around it. Bring tutors on the road, take tests on the road, whatever the case might be. Now, usually where you usually get a break and you can do, your academic requirements and you get a week and you get to go home and all that, you probably won't get all that now. If you're accelerating the playoffs and now you're playing 4 extra games that matters on top of it. Can't lose this guy. I need him for this game. Can't lose this guy. You don't get those breaks. And I do think it's more taxing on the college player because of what their criteria is, what their requirement is. It's not like the NFL. In the NFL, all I do is play football. That's it. If I want to be rich and famous, I go shoot commercials, I go get in movies, I go do this, I go do whatever. But that's my decision. In college, these guys are still required to do schoolwork. And still required to take tests. And still required to be a student. Yet it's still you out here giving them a professional schedule. I don't get it. So you're gonna force these guys to play more football, and then you're gonna force teams that shouldn't even be there to. I don't know, man. I don't understand why we in such a rush for expansion, other than the fact that it's conferences out there that believe they would never get a fair shake unless we expand. They may or may not be right. I feel like play better, but we just seen the best the AAC had to offer. The best the group of 5 had to offer. Because no matter what you say about Cincinnati, I think it's pretty clear that Cincinnati was the best group of 5 team that they had to offer. This season and probably the season before that. They got into the playoffs and you seen what happened. And then everybody want to say, well, that's Alabama. That wasn't a fair fight. That's the point.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Right.
That is the point. It's never going to be a fair fight. Because it's hard for them to recruit to the level of the other participants. Even if they would have played Georgia, it would have been an unfair fight. They would have played Michigan, unfair fight. Listen, you go around, you play Indiana, you play Notre Dame. Just because you play 2 teams doesn't mean you're ready to play with the elite committee, the elite, group of college football. And then even to the fact of the Pac-12 and the rest of the ACC outside of Clemson and the Big 12. It's like, come on, man. Y'all know what time it is. Why you think Lincoln Riley left, man? He knew what time it was. He's like, come on, man. I can't make it happen here. I'm out of here. Why you think Brian Kelly left Notre Dame to get to LSU? I can't make it happen with this talent, man. I got to go somewhere where I can get this talent. It's like that. It is what it is. You know what I'm saying? So, not to take, I could go on about this forever. But with this said, I'm glad they stand to 4 teams to 2025. We'll see what they do afterwards. All these teams are crying about their revenue. Well, I'm sorry. The SEC is just like the NFL right now. They're the cash cow of the SEC is the cash cow of college football, but the NFL is the cash cow of all sports right now. It is what it is. Everybody want a piece of the NFL. Everybody want a piece of the SEC. It's not their fault. You don't like it? Do something about it. Play better. Beat them. At the end of the day, that's what all this is about. If you don't want to see 2 SEC teams in there, beat them when you have the shot to beat them. Other than that, stop crying about who's getting what. Because The SEC, I guarantee you, Alabama didn't care to play Cincinnati, but if you're going to give us Cincinnati, we're going to play them. Georgia was like, okay, whatever. We'll rather be the 1 seed and get Cincinnati, but if you want to give us Michigan, we're going to play them and we're going to beat them. And what are we crying about? Where's the competitive spirit? Oh, there's no competitive spirit now. Everybody want a trophy. Everybody want to be included. That's a cool message we send out college football. Cool message.
Yeah, I guess if you're a proponent of the whole equity bit as far as the NFL, and it's what we talked about the last segment, then you'd probably be for expansion because you'd want more inclusion. I just had to say that. But look, man, I'm with this. I think this is a good decision. At least let's hang out at 4 teams. I'm sure they'll come back to it at a later date, and everybody get back on the same page. And I think we're headed to expansion, right or wrong. What's good for the sport, what's not good for the sport? Because, I mean, I do think it has a little bit of that feel like everybody got to get a trophy. Everybody at least got an opportunity to get the trophy because we know the Pac-12 is just over here, just like they just cannot get out their own way. Whether it's Oregon, whether it's Utah, whoever it is, they just wind up tripping over themselves and falling down before they get to the finish line. Because Oregon had a chance to get in last year, but they couldn't do it. And now you have, it just increasingly looks like the SEC is just a juggernaut. They'll get Oklahoma in there. They'll get Texas in there. I don't think that's that huge a deal for those 2 schools, but it will buffer the rest of the conference and they will be stronger. I just think both schools are going to struggle somewhat. And so you have the SEC doing what they're doing. You have the Big Ten, which is solid. They're the number 2 conference, and you can get Ohio State belongs. Generally when they play against the SEC team, they don't get just killed. But when you move beyond some of those top tier Big Ten schools, and then you move over to the Big 12 and the ACC, minus Clemson, we saw Clemson take a step back, and then generally the Pac-12, you just get to a point where as I said, we be having trouble getting a 4th school in here. It's just oh man, because a couple years ago it was Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson. We clear as day, those are the 3 best teams. Now we got to get a 4th one. Who is the 4th one? All right, come on in, Oklahoma. Take your 17-point beat down and get out of here and try again next year. So, man, when you just go to what I just described, and now you're going to go down to try to figure out what's the difference between the 12th team against the 13th team. What are we even talking about? Because neither of those teams are winning it all in all likelihood. There's a reason that before a couple years ago, no 16 seed in the NCAA tournament had beat a 1 seed. It's just a different level of competition. Virginia, of course, had to muck it up before they won it all the very next season. But I mean, whatever, 1 in 100, or I don't know what it is, but it's just you just don't happen. And so, and even the Cinderella stories that make it, they win a game, they win another game. The only really example I can come up with to where a Cinderella, what do they call them? The equivalent of the FCS college, a mid-major. I'm thinking of George Mason when I think Jim Larranaga was the coach and they made the Final Four. Outside of that, I'm not really coming up with much. You might have a team get past the first weekend every now and again and make a little noise. I mean, Loyola Chicago as well, But generally, those teams don't win, and it'll be the same thing in college football.
Maybe them Brad Stevens led Butler teams probably.
Right, but I think even those guys were Big East teams, weren't they? So
not at the time.
Not at the time.
Not at the time.
That's a good point. I do think it feels different in football because with the way you can recruit in football and you can just they gonna get the biggest, the fastest, and they gonna just impose their will. That's what football is about. I think we're going to get more teams in there, but at the end of the day, is the fact that we may get an AAC team consistently, that's not going to change. That's not going to stop your Alabamas and Georgias from being, in the championship game more often than not. That just means we got another couple teams in there participating, thinking they've done something, when in reality, they ain't done much at all because, look, Cincinnati you know, and this was a strange year because there was a lot of teams that was just down for whatever reason, and Cincinnati just happened to be the benefactor. I'm not sure if they was the best Group of 5 team ever. I mean, there's a bunch of Central Florida people that probably disagree with you from the teams they had a couple of years ago, but Cincinnati just hit the timing right, you know.
Oh,
So
well, and let me be clear. I said the best Group of 5 team from this year and
okay,
last year. I think they was by far better than the rest of the competition in Group of 5 this year and last year.
But yeah, just to close it out, because I know we've been on here for a little bit now. The thing we love about college football, and you always say this, is the sense of urgency, what the regular season means.
Right.
When you start talking about expansion and you're going to go to 12 teams, you're going to have some 3-loss teams, probably most definitely, and you might get a 4-loss team in there. And just like, what does that do to the sport? And then you've also just like, I'm not interested in bowl season now because the bowls are the playoff. Like, what is the other bowl games? Just they have way less meaning, and now you add 8 more teams to the playoff. Bowl season is just like, it's not something like I'm gonna take it even less seriously now. So we'll have to see, but I think we both are we're saying we're not mad, and I'm sticking for 4 for right now.